knows what he's talking about. Or go to someone who's in seminary if you know someone in there. These guys are learning these things. And it's good to glean information from them. Does that mean you have to go to seminary in order to learn what they're learning? No, you don't. But you can still glean from them. You can still learn from them. And if he's a real biblical pastor, he'll tell you and explain that to you. Okay? Now let's get back to this. The second view is the entire Christian teaching purpose view. So in other words, the word the faith means the entire embodiment of Christian teaching. Other theologians sometimes favor to translate pistis or pistin here to mean the general body of Christian doctrine, which is to be contended earnestly for in Jude 1 verse 3. This can be inferred from Titus 1, which gives the exhortation for the church to adhere to sound doctrine. Now here's the question. Which view is it? The bottom line concerning these two views comes to the interpreter is faced with making a decision on which view is accurate, which interpretation is accurate. Well, the answer to that question is you correctly interpret the text based on context. Context, context, context is the key to proper hermeneutics. Okay? So you want to understand the context of the passage, the context of the chapter, how it fits into the Bible, how it fits into the New Testament, how it fits into the Old Testament and New Testament. Is Paul's purpose for the faithful work for the men to come to faith through the act of salvation, or is he working for the purpose of men to be built up in the faith of Christian doctrine? Again, understanding the context makes all the difference. Interpreting the text here and with the second view could be a safer interpretation, but I would reason it would not be the most accurate view. See, pros for the second view could also arise from the selection of elders at Crete as well. See, Titus is tasked with appointing elders in verse 5 in the cities of Crete, which could clue into the fact that believers were already in Crete. These criterion in which Titus was to select from, which we see in verses 6 through 9, have to be those of the general body of the Christian faith. They would already possess saving faith. But is that enough to base the context on, though? Now, it is more of an accurate statement to interpret pistis here to refer to that of saving faith, keeping the first salvific view in mind. See, the problem with the second view is where pistis is used, with that particular view evident, the definite article that precedes pistis, like in Acts 16 verse 5, is not there. A careful study of this chapter, the interpreter can find the context of Titus alone sways more in the direction of the first view. In chapters 1 through 3, the purpose emerges itself as someone watching a true Christian doctrine come to life, or they're watching true Christian doctrine. So the people of Crete, this is what they are to see as Christianity. The faith is a gospel light shining to a fallen world, so evangelism here is in mind. Now here are the pros, some pros that the context is favoring saving faith, or the saving faith purpose view. Number 1, Paul was a slave and messenger of Jesus Christ. What was the messenger's message? The gospel truth of Jesus Christ. We know the gospel brings salvation. We see that in Romans 1 verses 16 and Romans 10 verses 9 through 17. Or better stated, the gospel brings saving faith. As repeated above, a doulos was separated with the message of the good news of who? Jesus Christ. We see that in Romans 1 verse 1. Paul was separated and was a slave to bring what? The gospel. It has to be about saving faith. Number 2, Crete was a place filled with liars. How do you dispel lies? You use the truth. Men living as liars do not need to just be corrected. They need to be saved and sound in the faith, which we see in verse 13 of Titus 1. One of their own prophets is quoted as saying whom the men of Crete really were. Is he describing Christians or unregenerate men? Think about it. Number 3. The following, if you follow the flow of the next phrase and the knowledge of the truth. So following the flow of thought to the next phrase, and that is the knowledge of the truth. The knowledge is transliterated epignosis. Epignosis, which also implies not just knowing the truth, but implies a more intimate and personal relationship in the truth. Epignosis is thus a knowledge of laying claim to personal involvement in the truth. So this knowledge of the truth cannot become personal unless first a man comes to the truth from a saving faith in Jesus Christ. Do you get it? You don't have all Christian doctrine and all this knowledge together. It doesn't correctly flow together. Both terms would be similar. Both of the terms would be similar. Why would Paul basically use two similar terms to explain his faithful work? No, it has to flow, showing his faithful work. Paul could just have used the knowledge of truth if explaining just Christian doctrine. You see? So he could have just used, I want, people to come to the knowledge of the truth. No, look at the flow. The faith of God's elect, boom, knowledge of the truth. You get it? Well, here's something that you can look at too in the similar flow. In 1 Timothy chapter 2, we see a similar pattern of salvation and then understanding true Christian doctrine. Listen to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 4. It says, who will have all men to be saved. See it? And to come unto the knowledge of the truth. Gotta have the saved part before you have the knowledge of the truth. Got it? Got it? Alright. Number 4. The use of the word elect and not the use of the word brethren in verse 1. Eklektos. Eklektos. That's the transliteration. It means elect, elected, picked out, chosen. It is those that Christ had chosen. That's what the word elect means. Now, plain and simple, do you pick out brothers? Why would you pick out brothers? Brethren are already in the family, right? They have already been chosen, right? See, no, he uses the word of the elect. See? Number 5. The use of the word Saviour as Jesus throughout the whole epistle of Titus. Many times in the context of the epistle, it refers to Jesus Christ as Savior, soter, more than the use of the word Lord, kurios. Now, you see this in chapter 1, verses 3 through 4, chapter 2, verse 13 through 14, and chapter 3, verses 4 through 6. Also, the word Lord's usage in the Bible as a whole outweighs the usage of Savior. But within this chapter, Lord is only used one or more times. Savior is used more. Isn't that interesting? Flows right with the context. Salvation, Savior. Okay? You can also examine some of the differences between the pastoral epistles of Timothy and Titus. Now, what am I talking about? Well, Timothy was in Ephesus, and in that time, Ephesus had already had elders amongst them. In Acts 20, you can see this. Paul had cried amongst them over the false teachers that would come in